I'm gonna pick Overtune and get OP traits. Nothing could possibly go wrong. Wait, why is everyone dying? Pre-planned growth. Wow, 30% more pop growth and 10% less housing usage. This is OP. Well, actually, no. When you hire a leader, they're usually around 30 to 40 years old. With the normal lifespan, this isn't a problem, as they can serve for 40 to 50 years without needing a replacement. What if suddenly their lifespan is only 50? Their effective service life would only be 20 to 30 years, doubling the amount of unity needed to replace the job. Unless you're a spiritualist, it's nearly impossible to do this without completely draining your unity. B tier. Although the penalty is severe, 30% extra pop growth is still nothing to scoff at, as it means a whole lot more pops that can produce unity to make up for the need to replace more leaders. You can also use this as a short-term pop growth boost by making a species template for them, prohibiting military service, biomodding some pops on a colony, importing them, and then forcing them to grow, allowing for a net gain and pop growth incubators, basically bootleg clone armies. If there's no pops, pop growth will be high, but if there's too many pops, pop growth will be low. Or so you thought. The penalty is a lie, by the way, because this allows you to hit the ideal S-curve for growth faster, which is needed to increase your growth even more, because as you get more pops, your pop growth will passively increase. S tier. No penalties for insane pop growth on colonies while only costing 2 trait points, allowing you to hit the S-curve of optimal pop growth even faster. Spliced Adaptability. 1 point and 10 years of life for 20% habitability. Doesn't sound like much, but this is insane. This will give you full habitability on your colonies, which are ideally your manufacturing. Normally, Designation's upkeep reduction counteracts the 20% less habitability you get on colonies. But with this trait, you can have full habitability and get 20% less job upkeep, allowing for an extremely efficient world at little to no cost. S tier. This is basically extremely adaptive, but costing 3 less trait points. This is so damn overpowered that this will likely be in every meta build imaginable. Excessive Endurance. 3 points for 30% habitability. Now, this sounds crazy at first, until you realize that you would be chopping off 30 years of your leader's lifespans. Let's put this into perspective. You only get an extra 10% habitability at the cost of 2 more trait points and 20 years less lifespan. What the heck? This is absolutely terrible. C tier. This trait is just worse in every aspect compared to its predecessor. Every bit of lifespan reduced for your leaders will mean a significantly higher unity expenditure. It's definitely not worth it. And don't even think picking Lithoid will save you. The plus 50 lifespan is a lie. Their leaders start older in their leader pool, effectively nullifying their actual buff, while having 25% less pop growth. Augmented Intelligence. Meh, intelligent, but worse. For just 1 less trait point, this isn't that good. And do not be fooled. 10% is a pathetic amount, since the longer the game goes, you accrue more science production bonuses. So the 10% is actually 2 to 3% actual science. C tier. Not ideal. 10 years of lifespan is significantly more valuable than the pathetic amount of science given. Still better than some others though. Elevated Synapses. The cost to benefit ratio on this is just messed up. 1 more trait point and 20 years less lifespan for only 10% more science. Using this combined with augmented intelligence puts you in a precarious position where beelining text or just having extra scientists in general is nearly impossible, as they all just die. C tier. I would not use this, as it falls off so fast, especially if you're picking up the production tax, making the impact of this trait near negligible at best. Only use this if you're a hive, since you can just easily pick the extra self-preservation for some extra lifespan. But even then, it's not that good, as Phototropic already does the same thing for hive indirectly, as it allows for more pops to be on research instead of farming, which actually does increase research more than boosting it with this trait. Blame Paradox for their convoluted math, okay? Inorganic Breath. Garbage. Absolutely garbage. 3 trait points for a pathetic amount of gas while having to pay 50% more pop upkeep. What the fuck? Trash tier. You spend money for basically nothing. Even without the upkeep increase, this thing would already be bad. But with the upkeep increase as well? No. Just no. Now, these 3 traits are pretty much their normal versions, but cost 1 less trait point while giving 10 years less lifespan. Farm Appendages. Food kinda sucks, cause you can just make them on star bases while having 0 farmers. The only use is for hive to feed itself, but even then, Phototropic already already does that better with no downsides. E tier. The fact that this thing doesn't give out bonus food from star bases, which ideally should be your main source, is a big problem that makes this thing useless. Dedicated miner and technical talent. Minerals and energy are both very important resources, but sacrificing leader lifespan for it is simply not worth it. They're both D tier. Use them to biomod pops in mining and energy worlds. Its modifier alone is quite pathetic, since again, the percentage modifier from text would completely squash the production impact, effectively only giving a 5% boost in output. Crafted smiles. Smile more uncannily. Due to the inherent usefulness of amenities in general, it's actually not a bad idea to use this. Not to mention the usual structure of 2-2-1 cost traits actually fits this really well. A tier, as the 1 cost trait is usually filled with a subpar one. This in its place could very well be the ideal replacement. Low maintenance. Trash, just trash. This is pop upkeep by the way, so you'll at best be saving around 2-3% more consumer goods. E tier, 10 years of lifespan for basically nothing is not a good look. Gene mentorship. This thing is literally just quick learners, but worse, it's awful. Just awful. More free 10 years less lifespan for nothing. E tier, your leaders die quicker and gain XP faster? How comical. Expressed tradition. This trait is the peak of hilarity. The lifespan reduction's unity cost to your empire is actually more compared to the unity gain. Such a comical trait deserves the E tier. Maybe D tier cause it's funny. Juiced power. An army camper's wet dream. Pretty bad to use at the start of the game, but by biomodding some pops and importing them on other planets to either clone or reanimate is a great recipe for an infinite source of super soldiers. C tier. Super situational and requires a lot of preparation. Not to mention needing an actual build that relies on army spam. But hey, at least it's not useless. Noxious. Be a walking gas cloud and make any other pop hate you. Increased minimum habitability but can't go above 70%. Don't misunderstand though, it's minimum, not additive. In a nutshell, this trait is just worse lithoids. It makes your other pops unhappy, killing your stability and production. E tier. Bad. Only useful for its army damage modifier, which you can use to spam clones or zombies, because if you have too many, this trait just becomes E tier. Just prepare for the poor stability though. So, how good is this origin? It's meh. B tier. Very good in the long run, but requires a lot of preparation and pop micro by biomodding traits into each world's specialization. Definitely not noob friendly. If you recklessly choose traits willy-nilly, you're gonna just die. Not to mention how most of these traits are actually only good for Hive, because they can somewhat mitigate the lifespan debuff. But what happens when you damn the consequences?
I have no idea!
If you want another tier list, then click the video on screen for a terrible Stellaris weapons tier list.